Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take a huge stack of research and pull out the most interesting bits.
Always fun.
Today we're diving into something a little different.
Okay.
We're looking at an astrological and tarot forecast.
Oh, interesting.
We're joined by Lorenzo.
Okay.
He's a well-known astrologer,
Mm-hmm.
and his brutally honest predictions have, well, earned him quite a reputation.
I can imagine.
So he's prepared something called a Karmic Astrology report,
Okay.
and it's focusing on the recent full moon and lunar eclipse in Virgo.
Interesting.
And trust me, it's intense,
Yeah.
especially for you Capricorns out there.
Oh, boy.
So let's just get right into it. This report is specifically for Capricorns,
Okay.
and it covers the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo that happened on March 14th, 2025.
All right.
Lorenzo doesn't waste any time. He jumps right in with the unexpected shakeup.
Okay.
And this is all about the impact of the sextile to Mars in Cancer in the 7th house. He says, and I quote, "Someone outside of you, a partner, an enemy, a situation you thought was under control triggers you like an earthquake. This isn't a slow burn. It's a detonation."
Wow. So Lorenzo is really emphasizing how this shakeup is triggered by something external. It's
Yeah.
not some internal struggle that you're working through. This is about someone or something you thought you had a handle on suddenly becoming a major problem.
Absolutely. And Lorenzo goes on to say, a conversation, an argument, or an encounter rips open old wounds you thought were scarred over.
Oh.
Yeah.
So he really emphasizes that this isn't about blaming others, though. He points out that ultimately this is about you. He
Interesting.
says, if you feel betrayed, abandoned, or backed into a corner, the real betrayal started when you ignored your own intuition. If a deal falls apart, if someone walks away, if your idea of security cracks, ask yourself, did I settle for comfort instead of truth?
So he's really pushing us to really examine the role our own choices play in these situations.
Yeah.
Lorenzo then dives into the hardest reality check. And this is where he connects it to the opposition to Saturn and Neptune in Pisces in the 3rd house.
Interesting.
He says, and I'm quoting him directly here, "Eclipses force a purge of illusions, and this one destroys the narrative you've been telling yourself about how things should be. That dream you've been holding on to, that person you keep making excuses for, that safety net that isn't actually safe. This is the moment where the fantasy dies. You either wake up or you keep walking in circles."
He doesn't hold back, does he? What strikes me is that Lorenzo is highlighting the need to face reality.
Right.
He's anticipating that there will be a major revelation for you Capricorns. Maybe it's a piece of news, a sudden realization, a conversation that removes all doubt.
And his advice is pretty stark.
Yeah.
He says, face it fully, without excuses, without what-ifs, without clinging to a past that no longer exists. The only way forward is through. Stop playing small. Stop waiting for a sign. You are the sign.
It's a powerful message.
Okay, but then things get a bit more hopeful.
Oh.
Lorenzo introduces what he calls a wild card opportunity.
Right.
And this is where the trine to Uranus in Taurus in the 5th house comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
Lorenzo writes, "Here's where things get interesting. Just when you think all is lost, a door you weren't even looking for flies open. But let's be clear, this isn't a comfortable transition. It's chaotic, disruptive, and exhilarating."
So it's almost like the universe is presenting a challenge disguised as an opportunity. Lorenzo is suggesting that you need to redefine what fulfillment means to you.
Yes. He says you've been too rigid, too pragmatic, too focused on what makes sense. And yet, what if happiness was never meant to make sense? What if you were never supposed to follow the traditional path? What if all the suffering you endured was pushing you towards something wildly different?
I find it interesting how he's connecting this opportunity to breaking free from those rigid ideas we hold about what should make us happy.
Right.
He's saying that maybe true happiness lies outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah. He says his guidance is to say yes to the opportunity that scares the hell out of you. Take the creative risk. Bet on yourself when no one else will. The things that feel reckless and exhilarating, that's your next move.
He's basically saying that that your happiness might not be found where you expect it to be.
Right.
He encourages you to embrace the unknown.
Yes. He says your happiness isn't where you thought it was. Something wild, creative, or romantic will pull you in a new direction. Let it. The brutal truth, he says, is that the safe path is a trap. Take the damn risk.
I love that. Take the risk.
It's definitely a call to step outside of your comfort zone and trust your intuition.
Yeah.
Now, Lorenzo takes a more serious turn with the karmic reckoning.
Okay.
And this is linked to the conjunction to the South Node in Virgo in the ninth house.
Mm-hmm.
He's really emphasized the cyclical nature of karma here.
Okay.
He says that every eclipse carries a karmic lesson. And this one is about recognizing a situation that feels familiar.
Right.
He says, different faces, different details, same soul lesson. It's almost like history is repeating itself.
Lorenzo is suggesting that how you handle this situation now will determine whether you break free from this cycle or remain stuck in it for years to come.
And he's pretty direct about it. He says, this is about breaking free from the limitations you put on yourself, especially in how you see the world, what you believe you deserve, and how much control you think you need to have. If you're still holding on to the past, clinging to outdated structures, this eclipse rips them away.
It's interesting how he's connecting this to our need for control.
Yeah.
He's saying that clinging to the past, to those outdated structures, is actually limiting our ability to move forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He goes on to say, am I evolving or am I just repeating? The past is a trap, and the only way out is forward. Let go of what's crumbling, or you will be dragged down with it.
There's a real sense of urgency here.
Yeah.
Lorenzo's making it clear that we have a choice to make.
So to really get into the nitty-gritty of it, Lorenzo provides an in-depth analysis of each astrological aspect and its connection to the tarot. Are you ready for this?
Absolutely. Let's dive into those specifics.
Okay. He starts with the lunar eclipse in Virgo itself, which he links to the 10 of Pentacles in the ninth house, represented by the Wheel of Fortune.
So he's saying that the very foundations of your life, Capricorn, are undergoing a massive transformation. He's pointing to the moon, which represents deep inner knowing, but in Virgo, the focus is on practical consequences.
And with the ninth house, which is symbolized by the Wheel of Fortune, you're at a crossroads. What happens next determines your fate.
Lorenzo says, and I quote, "You can no longer ignore the signs, that gut feeling, that random synchronicity, that pattern that keeps repeating. This is your karmic wake-up call."
It's like he's saying that the universe has been trying to get your attention, and now you have no choice but to listen.
He says, if you've built your life on shaky foundations, they collapse. The 10 of Pentacles suggests that old systems, old beliefs, or even family influences could be part of what's limiting you.
So it's not just about external factors. It's
Yeah.
about recognizing those internal structures that might be holding us back.
Yeah. Lorenzo says, this is your Wheel of Fortune moment. You either evolve or you repeat. The brutal truth, he says, is that the past is dead, and we need to stop trying to revive it.
It's a powerful image, isn't it? Letting go of what's no longer serving us to make way for something new.
Absolutely.
Now, Lorenzo moves on to the sextile to Mars in Cancer in the 7th house, connecting it to the Tower and the Chariot in the realm of justice.
Okay.
He says that this aspect represents an external trigger, someone or something that forces you to act. He writes, Mars in Cancer, represented by the Tower and the Chariot, means an emotional explosion that was a long time coming.
And with the 7th house, symbolized by justice, you're being forced to confront your role in whatever dynamic is being triggered. It seems like there's potential for some intense confrontations here.
Definitely. Lorenzo says, and I quote, a partner, friend, or rival shakes up your world. A fight, a breakup, or a betrayal could be involved.
He doesn't sugarcoat it, does he?
No.
It's like he's saying that this eclipse is going to bring some things to the surface that can't be ignored.
Right. Lorenzo writes, a toxic contract is breaking. A job, relationship, or agreement you thought was safe is revealing its true face. You're forced into action and can no longer sit in denial this situation demands that you fight or flee.
So it's not just about recognizing the truth, it's about taking decisive action based on that truth.
Absolutely. And he says, the brutal truth, he says, is that the universe is doing you a favor. Burn it down before it burns you.
Burn it down before it burns you. I like that.
Me too. Yeah. Next, Lorenzo delves into the opposition to Saturn and Neptune and Pisces in the 3rd house, relating it to the world, the Hanged Man, and the moon in the domain of the magician.
Oh, okay. This is where things get really interesting. He's basically saying that your illusions are being shattered. The world as you thought you knew it is gone.
Yeah. Lorenzo says Saturn in Pisces, symbolized by the world and the moon, exposes the lies you've been telling yourself, while Neptune, represented by the Hanged Man, forces you into an uncomfortable surrender. It's almost like you're being stripped bare, forced to confront the reality you've been avoiding.
He says, expect a major wake-up call. A secret could come out. A fantasy could be destroyed, or a long-held belief could collapse under reality.
So there's no escaping the truth during this eclipse.
No.
It's all about facing those hard realities.
Lorenzo says, if you've been avoiding responsibility, it catches up to you. No more manifesting without action. No more spiritual bypassing. If you want a different life, you need a different mindset.
It's about getting real with yourself and taking ownership of your choices.
He emphasizes that your words and thoughts shape your future. He says the third house, represented by the magician, means you must take control of your own narrative or someone else will. The brutal truth, he says, is that if you're still living in a fantasy, this eclipse will force you into reality painfully.
No more escapism. It's time to step into your power and create the reality you want.
Yes.
Now, for a more positive aspect, Lorenzo explores the trine to Uranus in Taurus in the 5th house, linking it to the Fool, the Hierophant, and the Sun.
He calls this your plot twist, and I love that imagery. He's saying that just when you think everything is falling apart, an unexpected opportunity presents itself.
Yeah. Lorenzo writes, Uranus in Taurus, represented by the Fool and the Hierophant, is about breaking free from traditional ideas, and in the 5th house, symbolized by the Sun, it means rediscovering what actually makes you happy.
It sounds like a time for profound self-discovery, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's urging you to stop following the rules that aren't serving you and to embrace the unexpected.
He says, an unexpected opportunity comes out of nowhere. It might seem risky, unconventional, or completely different from what you planned. He urges you to stop following the rules that aren't serving you. The Fool is saying, leap! Don't hesitate, don't overthink.
He's basically saying that your happiness might not be found where you expect it to be.
Right.
He encourages you to embrace the unknown. He says, your happiness isn't where you thought it was.
Yeah.
Something wild, creative, or romantic could pull you in a new direction. The brutal truth, he says, is that the safe path is a trap. Take the damn risk.
I love that. Take the risk.
It's definitely a call to step outside of your comfort zone and trust your intuition.
Yeah.
Funnily, Lorenzo examines the opposition to the North Node and conjunction to the South Node in Virgo in the 9th house, connecting it to the Star, the Devil, the Hermit, and the Wheel of Fortune.
This sounds like a major karmic showdown.
It does.
Yeah. He's basically saying that this eclipse is testing your karmic patterns. The South Node, symbolized by the Devil, shows where you are stuck, and the North Node, represented by the Star, shows where you should be going, but you're scared.
It's that fear that keeps us trapped in those old patterns, doesn't it?
Absolutely. He says you are being given a choice. Repeat the past or break free. Your fears are keeping you in chains. Old conditioning, family patterns, bad habits, limiting beliefs. If you don't break them now, you'll be trapped in them for years.
So it's not just about recognizing the pattern. It's about actively choosing to break free from it.
Lorenzo says he reminds you that the Wheel of Fortune is spinning, and what you do in the next few weeks determines the next several years of your life.
That's a lot of pressure.
It is.
But it also highlights the power we have to shape our own destinies.
He goes on to say, the brutal truth, he says, is that if you don't take this chance, you'll be stuck in this loop until you're forced to break free later when it's even harder.
It's like he's saying there's no escaping these lessons. We either learn them now or we'll be forced to learn them later when it's even more difficult.
And he sums it up beautifully. He says, your illusions are gone, your old ways are crumbling, and you are at a crossroads. You either evolve or get stuck in a repeating cycle of pain. He emphasizes that this is not a drill. This is a karmic reset. The universe is pushing you toward your highest path, but it won't beg you to take it. Your move.
So Lorenzo has given us a pretty clear picture of what this lunar eclipse in Virgo means for you, Capricorns. It's intense,
Yeah.
it's challenging, but it's also an opportunity for profound growth.
He's presented a lot of information, and what I find interesting is that he's woven together astrological insights with tarot interpretations to create a really comprehensive picture of this eclipse.
It's a lot to process, but I think we've covered the main points for now.
I agree. We've laid the foundation for understanding the astrological and tarot influences at play during this eclipse.
So let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll dive into Lorenzo's story about Sophia, a woman who embodies the challenges and opportunities of this eclipse.
That sounds fascinating. I'm eager to see how he brings these concepts to life.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We left off talking about the intent energy of this lunar eclipse in Virgo and how it's creating a karmic reset for you Capricorns.
Lorenzo has given us a lot to consider, and I'm particularly interested in how he brings all of this to life through a story.
He does. He shares a story titled When the Moon Turns Red, about a woman named Sophia who's facing a major crossroads.
I'm curious to hear how Sophia's story unfolds and how it connects to the astrological themes we've been discussing.
Lorenzo writes, the night was heavy with silence, the air thick with the scent of change. She knew it was coming, the kind of shift that rips through the fabric of reality, leaving nothing untouched, the kind that doesn't ask if you're ready. It just happens.
It sounds like Sophia is on the verge of a major life change, and she can sense it approaching.
He goes on to describe Sophia standing on the edge of an old bridge, feeling the weight of the impending eclipse.
I'm getting this sense of being on the precipice of something big, but also feeling the weight of the unknown.
He writes, Sophia had been living in the illusion of stability, with a job that drained her, a relationship that had turned cold, and a nagging feeling that she's meant for something more. But change was terrifying.
I think a lot of people can relate to that fear of the unknown. Even if you're unhappy, you're comfortable with what's familiar.
Yeah. Lorenzo writes, now change was inevitable.
It's like she's been avoiding this change for so long, and now the universe is forcing her to confront it.
Yeah. He goes on to say that the first sign comes in the form of a message from an old friend who knows a truth that Sophia has been avoiding.
It sounds like the truth is about to come out, and Sophia can't hide from it anymore.
Lorenzo writes, her hands trembled as she put the phone down. She didn't need to call. She already knew. Mars had arrived. The force that shatters illusions with brutal precision. The fire that burns down everything fake, everything weak, everything she thought was real.
That's powerful imagery. It's like her entire world is about to be turned upside down.
He goes on to say that her relationship is a lie. He writes, he had betrayed her, and now she could no longer deny it. She could already hear the tower crashing down.
The Tower card represents sudden and often painful change. It seems like Sophia is about to experience a major upheaval in her life.
Yeah. Lorenzo describes Sophia walking through the streets, her mind racing. He writes, she thought about the story she had crafted, the version of reality she had clung to, that stability meant happiness, that sacrificing herself for love was noble, that dreams were for reckless people and she was too practical for that. Lies. All of it. And she'd been drowning in them.
It's like she's finally seeing her life for what it is, and the realization is devastating.
As she's walking, he says she passes a bookstore and notices a book she loved as a child. A story about a woman who chose adventure over safety, passion over certainty.
It sounds like a reminder of the dreams she once had and the path she might have taken.
Lorenzo writes, the book was open, its pages caught in the wind, a sign, a coincidence. No, this was Saturn, the reckoning, the moment when the illusions crumble and all that remains is what's real.
It's like the universe is sending her a message, a reminder of who she truly is and what she's capable of.
And then he says a taxi pulls up and a stranger steps out, handing Sophia an envelope. Inside is a train ticket to a destination she's always dreamed of.
It sounds like fate is intervening, offering her a way out of her current situation.
Yeah. Lorenzo writes, her heart pounded. This was it. The North Node, the moment when destiny calls and you either answer or let it slip through your fingers.
It's a powerful moment of choice, and she's being asked to trust her intuition.
He goes on to say that Sophia feels the pull of the past, represented by the devil, urging her to stay and try to fix things. But fate, symbolized by the star, is calling her to leave.
It's that classic struggle between fear and desire, between clinging to what's familiar and taking a leap of faith.
Lorenzo writes, the city's lights blurred around her. The train station was only a block away. She had a choice. Stay in the life she had built on fear, or step into the unknown and claim what was rightfully hers.
It's all come down to this one decision, and the stakes couldn't be higher.
Yeah. He writes, she closed her eyes. The answer wasn't in logic, wasn't in fear. It was in her gut, her soul, the voice that had been waiting for her to finally listen.
It's like she's finally silencing those doubts and listening to her inner wisdom.
And then he reveals her decision. He writes, the moment she stepped onto that train, she would never look back. And she didn't. As the train pulled away, she looked at her reflection in the window. A new version of herself stared back. One who had chosen truth over comfort. One who had chosen herself. One who had finally answered destiny's call. The eclipse had spoken. And she had listened.
That's a beautiful ending. It's about choosing yourself and trusting the journey, even when it's scary.
Sophia's story is such a powerful illustration of the transformative power of this eclipse. It's about facing those hard truths, letting go of what no longer serves you, and ultimately choosing to create a life that aligns with your true self.
It's a reminder that we all have that choice, and that sometimes the universe pushes us to make it, even when we're resisting.
Now, Lorenzo doesn't stop there. He goes even deeper into the meaning of this eclipse, revealing what he called the hidden karmic truth of this eclipse, what no one else is telling you.
I'm intrigued. What does he say?
He starts by saying, and I quote, "Every astrologer and tarot reader is going to tell you the same predictable things about this lunar eclipse in Virgo. It's about letting go. It's about shifting perspectives. It's about wrapping up a cycle. Forget that. That's surface level. What they aren't telling you, because they don't see it, is that this eclipse isn't just about endings. It's a karmic test designed to break your spiritual autopilot."
It sounds like he's challenging the conventional wisdom about this eclipse. He's saying there's more to it than just letting go.
Yeah. He goes on to say, "This is not a lesson you're learning for the first time. This is not a gentle release of the past. This is a replay of a choice you have made before, possibly over lifetimes."
It's like we're being given another chance to get it right, to break free from those patterns that have been holding us back for lifetimes.
Absolutely. He encourages us to look beyond the surface level interpretations of this eclipse. He writes, "Dig deeper into the real mechanics of this eclipse, because there's something hidden here, something no one is looking at."
It's like he's inviting us to go on a deeper journey of self-discovery, to uncover the hidden truths that this eclipse is revealing.
He starts by discussing what he calls, "The eclipse is a forced reset of your free will, the karma you keep repeating." He says, and I quote, "Every lunar eclipse forces choices, but this one is special. This one doesn't just close a cycle, it forces you to make the same choice you've made before, but in a different way."
It's almost like we're being given a do-over, an opportunity to rewrite our karmic script.
Yeah. He points to Virgo, represented by the Ten of Pentacles, conjunct the South Node, symbolized by the devil in the Hermit's land.
Yeah.
He says this isn't just about letting go, it's about the rituals and beliefs you've trapped yourself in.
It's like we've built these prisons around ourselves and made up of our beliefs, our habits, and our fears.
Yeah. He writes, "You have built an entire mental prison around an idea of security that is actually suffocating you. You think you're being practical, you think you're doing what makes sense, but this is a cage disguised as stability."
It's so easy to get trapped in that mindset of playing it safe, of choosing what feels secure, even if it's not truly fulfilling.
He goes on to say that the opposition to Neptune, Saturn, and the North Node in Pisces, represented by the moon and the star, exposes your karmic blind spot. He writes, "You were never meant to follow the path you're on. You were meant to step off the known path. But every time this karmic cycle repeats, you hesitate."
It's like we keep getting to this point where we have the opportunity to break free, but our fear holds us back.
Yeah. Lorenzo writes, "You delay, you reason, you stay just a little bit longer, and every time you do this, the window closes for years."
It's a stark warning that our hesitation has consequences, that we might miss out on crucial opportunities for growth.
Yeah, he calls this eclipse a trap disguised as a test. He writes, "If you don't break the pattern now, it will seal you in it. If you hesitate now, you won't get the same chance again until 2027.
The stakes are high, and Lorenzo's making that very clear.
He goes on to say, "If you make the wrong choice again, you are locking yourself into a karmic cycle until Pluto enters Pisces in 2043. If you choose familiarity over fate, you will find yourself looking back years from now and realizing that this was the moment you were supposed to pivot, but you didn't."
It's a sobering thought, isn't it, to look back on your life and see all the missed opportunities, the chances you didn't take because of fear.
He really emphasizes this point. He writes, "No one else is talking about how this eclipse isn't just an ending, it's a quantum lock."
A quantum lock. It sounds intense.
Next, Lorenzo tackles what he calls the opposition to Neptune and Saturn, your spiritual gaslighting. He starts by saying, most astrologers will tell you Neptune illusions. Most tarot readers will tell you Neptune, the hanged man, enlightenment. They're both missing something. Neptune in Pisces is a trap, not an escape. This isn't about enlightenment, it's about spiritual gaslighting.
It's interesting how he's challenging those traditional interpretations of Neptune. He's saying there's a darker side to this energy, a potential for self-deception.
Yeah. He goes on to say, "There is a specific lie you have been telling yourself, a story you cling to that makes you feel safe. You have convinced yourself that waiting is wisdom, that stability is the goal, that certainty is security. He warns that you have lied to yourself so well that you don't even recognize it as a lie anymore.
It's like we've become so comfortable with our own illusions that we don't even recognize them as such.
He says that the opposition to Saturn, represented by the world, demands a wake-up call. It's time to face reality.
But he warns that Neptune can make that difficult. He says, but here's where most people get it wrong. Neptune doesn't just dissolve illusions, it tempts you to fall deeper into them.
Like Neptune is whispering those doubts, those excuses, those reasons to stay stuck in those comfortable illusions.
Lorenzo says Neptune whispers, maybe you need more time. It tells you, you don't have all the answers yet. It tricks you into thinking, the risk is too big. Wait until you're ready.
It's so easy to fall into that trap of waiting for the perfect moment, which never actually arrives.
Lorenzo emphasizes that you will never be ready. The only way forward is to act despite the uncertainty.
He says, this eclipse is forcing you to bet on yourself.
Yeah.
If you don't, Saturn will lock you into a cycle where the very thing you're afraid of, stagnation, disappointment, regret, becomes your reality.
It's a powerful reminder that our inaction can lead to the very outcome we're trying to avoid.
He then moves on to discuss Uranus and Taurus, the wild card no one saw coming. He writes, Uranus is trining this eclipse, which means there's a hidden door. Most readers will tell you this is a blessing. Most astrologers will say this is sudden opportunity. They are missing the warning.
What's the warning?
Lorenzo says, Uranus is not just about change. It's about radical breaks. And in Taurus, this means if you don't take control of your fate, the universe will rip it out of your hands.
It sounds like we need to be proactive about creating the change we want to see in our lives.
Yeah. He writes, you are being given one last chance to voluntarily make a bold move. If you refuse, expect an external force to make the decision for you.
It's like the universe is saying, make the change or the change will be made for you, and you might not like it.
Lorenzo says, this is not a drill. A relationship may break apart suddenly. A job could end without warning. A life-altering event could push you into a new direction, violently if necessary.
It's a wake-up call to take charge of our lives before the universe does it for us.
Yeah. He calls this eclipse mercy before the storm. He writes, if you don't make the move yourself, Uranus will do it for you, and you will have no control over how it plays out.
It's a powerful reminder that we have agency in our lives, but we need to exercise it.
Finally, Lorenzo addresses the South Node and Virgo, the karmic deadline no one is talking about. He writes, the South Node is where we get stuck. Virgo wants perfection, but perfection is impossible. This means you are waiting for the right moment that will never come. You are delaying because you think you need more time. You are convincing yourself that playing it safe is smart, but it's actually sabotage.
It's that perfectionism that keeps us stuck, that fear of making a mistake that prevents us from taking action.
Lorenzo reveals that this eclipse is the final test before the South Node shifts signs. He writes, if you make the same choices before, you will lock in this karmic cycle for another 2 years. If you take the leap, the entire course of your life changes.
It's all coming to a head. This is the moment of truth.
Lorenzo writes, this is not a random moment. This is a soul checkpoint. This is the final exam before you either level up or repeat the lesson.
It's like we're being given one last chance to prove we've learned the lessons we're meant to learn.
He concludes this section with a final revelation. No other astrologer or tarot reader will tell you this, because they don't see it. This eclipse is not just an ending. It is a karmic quantum lock. You are at a soul choice point that you have faced before. If you hesitate, if you delay, if you ignore this chance, your fate will be sealed. Uranus is your last warning. If you don't take action, it will be taken for you. You have been here before. Will you make the same mistake again? Brutal truth. This is it. Choose wisely.
Wow, he's not holding back, is he?
He's definitely not mincing words. He's laying it all out there in a way that's both terrifying and empowering.
It's a wake-up call for sure, but it's also a call to action to step into our power and create the lives we're meant to live.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, Lorenzo offers some practical guidance on how to navigate this intense energy. He provides what he calls an eclipse survival guide, what to do, not just what to know.
I'm all ears. What does he suggest?
He starts by saying, this isn't about understanding the eclipse. This is about using it. You don't want to get steamrolled by fate, then act.
I like that. It's about taking taking ownership of our destiny rather than being a passive bystander.
He outlines 4 steps to break the cycle.
Okay, I'm taking notes.
Step 1 is to identify your karmic repetition. He suggests doing this before the eclipse.
That makes sense. You need to be aware of the pattern before you can break it.
He provides some journal prompts. What decision am I avoiding because it feels too risky? Where in my life do I keep ending up in the same situation? What belief about myself do I need to destroy to move forward? If my fear was completely gone, what would I do immediately? What is the one thing I know I need to do but keep postponing?
These are great questions for self-reflection. They really get to the heart of what's been holding us back.
He then suggests an action step. Write down the single biggest excuse you've been telling yourself. Then burn it, tear it up, rip it apart. This is a physical break from the cycle.
I love the symbolism of that. It's like physically releasing those old excuses, those limiting beliefs.
Step 2 is to burn the old path, literally. He suggests doing a fire ritual for release on the eclipse night.
Fire is such a powerful symbol of transformation. It makes sense to use it as a tool for letting go.
He says, write down one thing you are done with. Read it out loud. Feel the finality. Burn it. Watch the fire consume it. Speak this affirmation as it turns to ash. I release the path that has kept me trapped. I choose my destiny, not my past. This is my moment of power.
That's a powerful affirmation. It's about reclaiming your power and choosing to create a new path for yourself.
Lorenzo explains that this works because fire is irreversible. He writes, there is no rewinding. This is your physical declaration that you will never return to the old way.
It's like drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is where the old me ends and the new me begins.
Step 3 is the leap, take action immediately.
No more hesitation. It's time to put those intentions into action.
Lorenzo says, you must take an irreversible action within 72 hours of the eclipse.
It's about seizing the momentum of this eclipse and not letting it pass you by.
He gives some examples. Quit something that's draining you. A toxic habit, a limiting belief, a job, a relationship. Apply for the thing you've been scared to go after, a job, a trip, an opportunity. Cut ties with the past in a tangible way. Delete old messages, throw out objects that hold bad energy, change your location. Speak your truth to someone you've been avoiding.
These are all great examples of taking decisive action. It's about doing something that signifies a clear break from the past.
He writes, whatever scares you the most, that's the move. Do it. No hesitation.
It's about facing those fears and taking that leap of faith.
Step 4 is to protect yourself from falling back.
This is so important. It's easy to fall back into old patterns, especially when things get challenging.
Lorenzo provides an affirmation lock-in technique. He says, every morning for 21 days, say this out loud. I am no longer available for my old life. I am moving forward and nothing will stop me.
I love that. It's about reprogramming your subconscious mind and aligning your thoughts and beliefs with the new reality you're creating.
He also suggests a visualization technique. He says, imagine your old self as a shadow behind you. Picture yourself walking away from it. Each time you feel doubt creeping in, visualize slamming a door shut.
That's a great technique. It creates a clear boundary between the old you and the new you.
Lorenzo explains that this works because your mind creates your reality. He writes, this locks in the new version of you instead of letting the old one creep back in.
It's about being mindful of the thoughts we're feeding ourselves and making sure they're aligned with our goals.
Finally, Lorenzo issues a final warning. No hesitation, no delays. He says, this isn't about thinking about it. This is about acting on it. The burning ritual severs the past. The breakout move forces fate's hand. The affirmations and visualizations protect you from backsliding. This eclipse is your last warning before the door shuts. Your move.
It's like he's saying, this is it. This is your moment. Don't waste it.
Lorenzo's given us a lot to think about and a lot to do. But I think the most important takeaway is that we have the power to create the life we want.
Absolutely. He's provided us with the tools and the insights we need to navigate this eclipse and emerge transformed.
So what are you going to do with this information? What changes are you ready to make? What leap of faith are you willing to take?
Those are great questions for our listeners to reflect on as we head into the final part of our deep dive.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring Lorenzo's Karmic Tarot Astrology report for Capricorns during this intense lunar eclipse in Virgo.
He's given us a lot to unpack. From the unexpected shakeups and shattered illusions to the wildcard opportunities and the need to break free from those repeating karmic patterns.
Yeah, it's been a wild ride. But I think we're starting to see the bigger picture here. This eclipse is a catalyst for change, like a cosmic reset that's pushing us to confront those hard truths and make those difficult decisions we've been avoiding.
Right. It's about recognizing those patterns that have been holding us back and choosing to step into a new way of being.
Lorenzo's report was pretty intense, but I think it was also incredibly empowering.
Yeah, I agree.
He didn't sugarcoat anything. He laid it all out there and gave us a clear roadmap for navigating this energy.
Right. He didn't just tell us what to expect. He gave us actionable steps we can take to harness the transformative power of this eclipse and emerge stronger and more aligned with our true selves.
So let's recap those key insights and practical tips before we wrap up.
Absolutely. First and foremost, Lorenzo emphasized that this eclipse is a karmic test, not just an ending. It's a replay of a choice we've made before, possibly over lifetimes, and how we respond now will determine whether we break free from those old patterns or repeat them.
Right.
Yeah. He also warned us about the dangers of spiritual gaslighting, particularly with Neptune and Pisces.
Yes.
It's easy to get lost in illusions, to convince ourselves that we need more time or that we're not ready to take action. But the truth is, we'll never be fully ready. We have to trust our intuition and take that leap of faith.
And then there's Uranus and Taurus, the wild card that no one saw coming.
Right.
It represents sudden change, radical breaks, and unexpected opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
But it also carries a warning. If we don't embrace change and take control of our destiny, the universe will do it for us, and it might not be pretty.
He really hammered home that point with the South Node in Virgo, reminding us that this eclipse is a final test before the South Node shifts signs. If we make the same choices we've made in the past, we'll be stuck in that karmic loop for another 2 years. But if we seize this opportunity for growth, everything changes.
It's all about choosing our destiny rather than letting fate decide for us.
Yeah.
Now, Lorenzo didn't just leave us with these insights. He also provided a practical eclipse survival guide to help us navigate this intense energy.
Yeah, he gave us 4 key steps to break free from those karmic cycles. Identify your karmic repetition, burn the old path, take immediate action, and protect yourself from falling back.
Right. It all starts with awareness. We need to recognize those patterns, those limiting beliefs, and those self-sabotaging behaviors that have been holding us back. Then we can start to release them through rituals, affirmations, visualizations, and most importantly, action.
He reminded us that this isn't just about thinking about it, it's about acting on it. It's about taking those bold steps that scare us and trusting that we're being guided toward our highest potential.
He didn't mince words. He said no hesitation, no delays. This is it. This is our moment.
And I think that's what makes his report so powerful. It's a wake-up call, but it's also a call to action. It's an invitation to step into our power and create the life we truly desire.
So as we close out this deep dive, I encourage you to reflect on everything we've discussed and ask yourself, what are you ready to change? What karmic patterns are you ready to release? What bold steps are you willing to take to create a life that's aligned with your true self?
Remember, this is your journey, and you have the power to choose your own destiny.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Lorenzo's Karmic Astrology report. We hope you found his insights valuable and empowering. We'll see you on our next deep dive.